The morning sunlight filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Apex Enterprises, glinting off the polished mahogany table in the boardroom. The room was tense. Executives in tailored suits shuffled papers, whispered, and adjusted ties as they waited for the quarterly meeting to start. No one expected a disruption, least of all Michael Carrington, the young but formidable CEO, known for his strict demeanor and icy professionalism. He had a reputation for perfection, for control, for never letting emotions cloud the sharp edges of business. Then she appeared. Clara Whitman, a junior strategist with barely a year in the company, pushed open the heavy doors, a baby carrier strapped to her chest. Her heart pounded. She knew this was unprecedented, against every rule, every expectation. "Clara, what is that?" one senior VP asked, eyes wide. Michael's gaze snapped to her. The room fell silent, and then it happened. The baby, no more than 9 months old, peered over Clara's shoulder with wide, curious eyes. The room, filled with ambition, tension, and the cold scent of coffee, seemed to stop breathing. Michael blinked as if seeing a ghost. The baby's tiny fingers grasped the edge of Clara's jacket. There was something. He couldn't place it. So human, so alive, that it cut through the steel and glass of his boardroom authority. Clara took a deep breath. I couldn't find childcare this morning, but this report is important. I can present it if that's okay." The executives exchanged uncertain glances. Whispers rippled across the room. Breaking protocol, yes. But the determination in Clara's eyes, combined with the innocence in that baby's gaze, made it almost impossible to object. Michael Carrington leaned back in his chair, studying her. His mind, always calculating profit margins and quarterly forecasts, suddenly faltered. He felt a strange tug. He didn't understand it. It was irrational, and yet it was impossible to ignore. Clara set the carrier gently on the floor and began her presentation. Her voice, steady yet infused with quiet passion, began to explain the projections, the strategy, the potential for growth. The baby, cooing softly, crawled a little closer to Michael's chair. Michael cleared his throat. He expected annoyance, disruption, but instead he felt something else. Curiosity, and perhaps for the first time in years, a glimmer of warmth. The boardroom watched, tense and unsure, as Clara navigated slides, charts, and numbers, all while keeping one eye on her baby. The impossible was happening. She was holding their attention, commanding it, despite breaking every rule they held sacred. By the time she finished, the room was silent, and Michael Carrington, CEO of Apex Enterprises, realized that this quiet, unconventional act had done something unexpected. It had made him see her differently. After the boardroom emptied, the quiet hum of the city below seeped through the glass walls. Clara stood by the elevator, baby in her arms, heart still racing. Every step she had taken into the room had been an act of courage, an act of defiance against rules that seemed designed to silence her. Yet, somehow, she had not only survived, it seemed she had left a mark. Michael Carrington remained at the head of the mahogany table, alone, staring at the empty chair across from him. His mind, usually a precise instrument of calculation, was in chaos. Every second replayed the image of Clara, balancing a presentation with a baby at her chest, speaking with clarity, confidence, and unshakable determination. He couldn't remember the last time someone had made him feel unsettled, and not in a negative way. It was a challenge, yes, but a different kind of challenge, one that went beyond numbers and spreadsheets. It tugged at something he didn't allow himself to acknowledge, something human. Clara's phone buzzed with a reminder of her next meeting, but she ignored it, taking a moment to breathe. The baby yawned, leaning his head against her shoulder. She smiled softly, rocking him gently, and wondered if she had truly impressed the board, or if she had just survived their silent judgment. Meanwhile, Michael finally stood, smoothing his tie. He walked to the window, hands pressed against the glass, staring at the bustling city below. Every instinct screamed professionalism, focused detachment, but the image of Clara, fearless, resolute, and tender, lingered stubbornly in his mind. He realized something important. The boardroom, the company, even his own life had been missing humanity. The kind of humanity Clara had brought in with her, a tiny bundle of vulnerability and strength wrapped into one. By mid-afternoon, Clara returned to her office, trying to focus on reports and emails, but her thoughts kept drifting back to Michael's intense, inscrutable gaze. Was it curiosity? Disapproval? Respect? She couldn't tell. And yet she felt a strange power in having captured his attention, a power she had never felt before in the corporate world. Later, Michael requested a private meeting. Clara's heart skipped a beat. What did he want? Was it reprimand, praise, or something more personal? In his office, the walls adorned with awards, stock charts, and photographs of business milestones, Michael gestured for her to sit. The baby, now dozing in her arms, made a soft cooing sound. Michael's eyes softened, almost imperceptibly, as he watched her care for him. "Clara," he began, voice measured, "today what you did, it wasn't just unusual, it was extraordinary." Clara's fingers tightened around the baby's carrier. "Thank you, sir. I wanted to make sure the team understood the projections." Michael leaned back, studying her. "Most people in your position would have panicked, stumbled, or walked away. You didn't just survive. You commanded attention, empathy, and respect, all at the same time. That's a rare combination." Clara felt a flush of pride, but also apprehension. I just wanted to do my job," she said softly, rocking the baby. Michael's gaze drifted to the sleeping child. "You didn't just do your job. You reminded everyone here, including me, that business isn't just numbers, it's people, emotions, connection, courage." The room grew quiet, the city sounds outside fading into insignificance. For the first time in years, Michael felt something he rarely allowed himself to: vulnerability. He had been trained to hide behind spreadsheets, forecasts, and corporate strategy, but Clara had stripped it all away in one morning. Clara's phone buzzed again. Another meeting, another deadline, but she ignored it. This moment, this recognition, felt larger than any report or spreadsheet. She realized she had begun to see Michael not as an untouchable CEO, but as a man capable of being moved, capable of change. The day after the boardroom incident, Clara arrived at Apex Enterprises with a mixture of determination and anxiety. The corridors felt different somehow, more charged, more alive. People who had barely noticed her before now glanced her way, some with curiosity, some with envy. Whispers followed her footsteps like invisible currents. Her baby, now secured in a carrier, seemed unusually calm, as if sensing the subtle shift in the atmosphere. Clara took a deep breath and reminded herself. She had come here to work, to prove herself not just as a mother juggling responsibilities, but as a strategist who could hold her own. By mid-morning, she noticed subtle changes in office behavior. Colleagues who once dismissed her ideas now paused when she spoke. One senior associate, Jonathan, who had often interrupted her during meetings, nodded attentively as she outlined a minor but crucial adjustment to a marketing strategy. The room didn't just listen, they leaned in. Clara realized that the boardroom incident had done more than disrupt, it had altered perceptions. Meanwhile, Michael observed from his office. He watched Clara navigate these small but significant challenges with grace, intelligence, and an undercurrent of quiet strength. There was something magnetic about her composure, something that commanded respect without demanding it. During lunch, Clara found herself in the company cafeteria, balancing her meal tray and baby. She noticed a few coworkers whispering, but rather than discomfort, she felt a surge of confidence. She was learning a new form of power, the kind that didn't come from authority, but from presence, courage, and authenticity. Michael, walking by to greet a client, paused when he saw Clara. Their eyes met across the room and he offered a slight nod. Not formal, not dismissive, something warmer, almost approving. Clara felt a flutter of unease and excitement. He was observing her, but in a way that wasn't judgmental. It was calculating, assessing, intrigued. The afternoon brought a critical strategy session. Clara was asked to present a new proposal for expanding the company's digital outreach. This was her first major solo presentation since the boardroom incident. She adjusted her baby carrier, took a deep breath, and stepped into the glass-walled conference room. The room was filled with seasoned executives, some skeptical, some curious. Clara's voice was steady, her arguments sharp, her slides clear and compelling. She infused the presentation with real-world insights, demonstrating not just technical knowledge but an understanding of human behavior. the audience's motivations, desires, and concerns. Halfway through, she noticed Michael observing silently from the corner, his expression unreadable but focused. His presence was both intimidating and strangely reassuring. She realized he was watching not just the presentation, but her, how she balanced intellect with empathy, strategy with humanity. By the end, the executives applauded, not perfunctorily but with genuine appreciation. Some exchanged nods, and even Jonathan offered a subtle, respectful smile. Clara felt a quiet triumph. She wasn't just being recognized, she was being seen. After the session, as she collected her materials and quietly prepared to leave, Michael approached. His usual formal demeanor softened ever so slightly. "Clara," he said, his voice calm but carrying weight, "your presentation, it was impressive. Your insights, the way you anticipate challenges. You've changed the way some of us will look at strategy from now on." Clara smiled faintly, cradling her baby. "Thank you, sir. I just try to think from the perspective of people who will be affected. The numbers are important, but understanding the human side, that's what makes the strategy work." Michael studied her thoughtfully. "You have a rare combination: intellect, empathy, and courage. Most people possess one, rarely all three. Keep nurturing it. I have a feeling you'll influence this company in ways we don't even expect yet." Clara's heart swelled with pride, but she remained grounded. She knew that attention brought scrutiny, that admiration often came with envy. Still, she felt a spark of something she had never experienced in the corporate world. Genuine recognition, not for appearances or politics, but for who she truly was. As she returned to her office, she reflected on the subtle but profound shifts around her. People were watching, assessing, and reacting, and she had begun to understand that success wasn't just about climbing the corporate ladder. It was about leaving a mark, quietly but powerfully, through courage, intelligence, and heart. By the end of the day, Clara looked out of her office window, baby asleep against her chest. The city lights blinked below, and she felt a growing sense of purpose. This was no longer just about surviving corporate life. It was about shaping it, one brave step at a time. And somewhere in the towering office building, Michael Carrington watched her leave, thinking not about profits or deadlines, but about the woman who had entered his boardroom and altered the course of his day, perhaps even his life. The morning at Apex Enterprises was unusually electric. Word of Clara's boardroom appearance had spread quietly but swiftly, like a current running through the office. By the time she arrived, subtle glances followed her across the polished marble floors. Some colleagues admired her courage, others eyed her with thinly veiled jealousy, but Clara didn't flinch. She had learned that confidence often demanded calm in the face of scrutiny. She made her way to her office, baby secure and dozing softly, and unpacked her laptop. Today's agenda was packed. Meetings, strategy calls, and a high-stakes negotiation with a prospective client. But Clara was ready. Her experience yesterday had given her not just confidence, but a sense of presence, an aura of quiet command that demanded attention without demanding it. Her first meeting was with Jonathan, the associate who had once undermined her ideas. He approached her desk cautiously, clearly still digesting her boardroom feat. "Clara, about the presentation yesterday," he began, voice hesitant. I think your proposal really changed how I see the project. I'd like to collaborate more closely with you." Clara smiled politely. "I'm glad to hear that. Let's make sure we focus on what's best for the company and the team." Jonathan nodded, impressed by her composure, and left with a newfound respect. Clara realized that sometimes leadership wasn't about authority. It was about presence, integrity, and the ability to rise above petty rivalries. Meanwhile, Michael watched from his office across the hall. He noticed subtle changes in the way people interacted with Clara. They deferred to her, not out of fear, but out of acknowledgement. He found himself drawn to these observations, studying her interactions as if learning a new language. Her influence was quiet but undeniable, a soft, steady force that shaped the environment around her. Later, Clara joined a negotiation call with a prospective client, a multinational firm that had the potential to bring substantial revenue to Apex. She balanced her notes and kept her baby close, navigating the conversation with a rare blend of authority and empathy. Every point she made was precise, informed, and human-centric. By the end of the call, the client expressed confidence in working with her directly, bypassing several senior managers who traditionally led these discussions. Back at her desk, Clara leaned back, a faint smile on her lips. She had survived scrutiny, skepticism, and the subtle politics of office life. She had carved a place for herself not through aggression, but through intelligence, courage, and humanity. Then Michael called her office. Clara's pulse quickened, not from fear but anticipation. "Clara," Michael said as he entered, closing the door behind him, "I've been reviewing your work, your approach, and I must say, it's remarkable. You've brought a perspective to Apex that we've sorely needed. The way you balance strategy with empathy, it's rare." Clara nodded, rocking her baby gently. "Thank you, sir. I believe that people, not just numbers, drive success, and understanding that makes the difference." Michael studied her closely, his usual composed demeanor softening. "It's not just the work. It's the way you make people see, feel, and understand. You've changed the energy here, and I want you to know that your efforts haven't gone unnoticed." The weight of his words lingered in the room, almost tangible. Clara felt a warmth that had nothing to do with professional acknowledgement. It was recognition of her courage, her heart, and her unique strength. As Michael left, he caught her eye briefly. In that fleeting glance, Clara sensed curiosity, admiration, and perhaps something deeper, a connection that went beyond corporate hierarchy. That evening, as the office emptied and Clara prepared to leave, she paused by the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city lights stretched endlessly, mirrored in the calm determination in her eyes. The day had tested her resilience, her intellect, and her ability to command attention without losing herself. She had proven, not just to others but to herself, that courage and humanity could coexist in the corporate world. Somewhere in the building, Michael lingered by his office door, watching her leave. For the first time in years, he considered not just the work she had done, but the presence she carried. He realized that Clara was no ordinary employee. She was a force, quiet, resilient, and profoundly human, and he couldn't help but wonder what that force would do next. The morning sunlight spilled into Clara's office, illuminating the soft hum of the city below. She adjusted the baby in the carrier and set her laptop on the desk, ready to tackle a mountain of emails, reports, and planning documents. But today felt different. She could sense the undercurrent in the office, a mixture of curiosity, respect, and the faintest hint of envy. Her phone buzzed with notifications, colleagues commenting on her previous presentation, praise from departments she hadn't even interacted with, and a message from Michael requesting a brief update meeting. Clara exhaled slowly. She had expected challenges, whispers, perhaps skepticism, but the momentum of her recent success was undeniable. As she navigated her morning, juggling spreadsheets, client calls, and the baby's coos, she noticed small but significant changes. People held doors open, greeted her with genuine warmth, and most importantly, they listened when she spoke. Clara had broken invisible barriers, the ones that often silenced young mothers in high-powered workplaces, and she was beginning to feel the ripple effects. At 11 a.m., Michael appeared outside her office, waiting politely before knocking. Clara's pulse quickened, not from anxiety, but from the magnetic pull of his presence. "Clara," he said, stepping in with an envelope in hand, "I wanted you to have this before the meeting today." It was an internal memo detailing a new cross-departmental project, high stakes, highly visible, and strategically critical for Apex Enterprises. Most employees would have hesitated, intimidated by the scope and scrutiny. But Clara's confidence had grown, fueled by the Boardroom incident and her own resilience. "I'll handle it," she said simply, rocking the baby gently. Michael studied her, as if weighing the depth of her courage and resourcefulness. "I know you will," he replied, his voice soft but certain. There was a hint of admiration in his eyes, a recognition that Clara's strength was something rare and profound. The project required coordination between marketing, operations, and finance, a challenge even for senior managers. Clara dove in, meticulously organizing schedules, delegating responsibilities, and ensuring that communication flowed seamlessly. Her colleagues, initially skeptical, were drawn into her orbit, impressed by her calm authority and thoughtful approach. By late afternoon, the baby had stirred from a nap, cooing softly while Clara presented a progress update to a room of senior executives. She navigated questions, objections, and minor conflicts with poise, demonstrating not just competence, but vision. Every slide, every explanation, carried the weight of someone who understood that leadership was as much about empathy as it was about strategy. After the meeting, Michael pulled Clara aside. "You've done something remarkable," he said, lowering his voice. "You've not only managed this project with excellence, but you've also shifted the culture around you. People respect you, and more importantly, they follow your lead willingly. That's rare." Clara felt a warmth in her chest, not from praise alone, but from the subtle acknowledgement of her humanity. She realized that her identity as a mother, a strategist, and a courageous professional could coexist, and even complement each other in a world that often demanded choice between them. That evening, as she packed her laptop and cradled the sleeping baby, Clara walked through the quiet corridors of Apex Enterprises. The city lights reflected on the glass walls, mirroring the newfound determination in her amber eyes. She had navigated politics, skepticism, and high expectations, proving to herself and others that courage and empathy were forms of power just as potent as any title or hierarchy. Across the building, Michael lingered near his office window, watching Clara leave. He thought about her resilience, her composure, and the quiet magnetism she carried. For the first time in years, he considered the possibility that the world, or at least his world, was larger and warmer than he had allowed himself to believe. And somewhere deep inside, he felt that Clara's journey was entwined with something far greater than he could yet comprehend. The morning air outside Apex Enterprises was crisp, carrying the faint scent of coffee and freshly printed newspapers. Clara arrived early, baby securely in the carrier, determination etched on her face. Today wasn't just another workday. It was the day she would navigate a web of office politics, tight deadlines, and high expectations that threatened to test her limits. As she stepped into the office, she noticed the subtle, knowing glances from colleagues. Some looked impressed, others wary. The whispers had grown louder, though not overtly. People were noticing her ability to command attention while balancing motherhood and her rising role in the company. Clara reminded herself that admiration often bred envy, and she needed to stay grounded. Her first task was reviewing a critical report that would influence the upcoming board discussion. Numbers, projections, and charts blurred before her eyes, but she maintained focus. The baby stirred slightly, and she gently rocked him while reviewing a marketing performance analysis. The soft cooing reminded her that, despite corporate pressures, she wasn't alone. Her child was a living symbol of resilience. By late morning, the office atmosphere shifted. Jonathan, the previously skeptical associate, approached cautiously. "Clara, the client call this afternoon. I wanted to offer support if you need an extra pair of hands," he said, voice tentative. Clara smiled warmly. "Thank you, Jonathan, I appreciate it. Let's make sure we present a united front, clear, concise, and strategic." Even small gestures like this mattered. She realized leadership wasn't just about giving orders or being recognized. It was about fostering collaboration and trust, even in the most subtle ways. The client call arrived, a high-stakes discussion with an international partner. Clara set the baby aside carefully in a safe play area nearby. She led the meeting with poise, balancing technical insights with empathetic understanding of the client's concerns. Every objection she addressed, every suggestion she made, revealed not just expertise, but emotional intelligence. By the end of the call, the clients were impressed, asking for follow-ups directly with her team. Michael, watching quietly from his office window across the hall, felt an unfamiliar tug. He had long prided himself on reading people, but Clara was different. Her ability to blend competence, empathy, and quiet authority was magnetic. He found himself reflecting on the subtle ways she influenced those around her, even during interactions he hadn't witnessed directly. Later, Clara faced a new challenge, a subtle pushback from a senior executive who resented her rising influence. His comments were carefully framed, but the tension was palpable. Clara responded calmly, her tone firm yet respectful, countering with facts, reasoning, and vision. The executive faltered under her composed confidence. It was a small victory, but a critical one. Clara realized that breaking barriers required not just talent, but resilience, patience, and strategic courage. By evening, the office had quieted. Clara cradled the now sleeping baby, reviewing notes for the next day's high-level strategy meeting. The weight of responsibilities pressed on her, but she felt a quiet pride in how far she had come. She had survived the boardroom scrutiny, office politics, and the constant challenge of balancing motherhood with ambition. Michael approached her office once again, his expression softer than usual. "Clara," he said, leaning slightly against the doorframe, "I've observed the way you handle pressure. How you manage expectations, guide your team, and maintain grace under scrutiny. It's remarkable." Clara looked up, surprised by the personal note. "Thank you, sir. It's a balance. Some days are harder than others, but I try to focus on solutions, not just problems." He nodded thoughtfully. "You're not just influencing projects or teams. You're shifting the culture here, subtly, powerfully. I have a feeling Apex Enterprises won't ever be the same because of you." A warmth rose in Clara's chest, not from praise alone, but from recognition of her journey. She realized that courage wasn't always loud. Sometimes it was quiet persistence, human connection, and unwavering integrity. As she left the office that night, city lights glittering against the glass facades, Michael lingered near his office window, silently observing. Clara's presence, her strength, and her quiet magnetism had left a mark. For the first time in a long while, he contemplated more than just profits and growth. He considered possibility, human connection, and the extraordinary courage that could change everything. The following morning, the city was shrouded in a gentle mist, the streets glistening from an overnight drizzle. Clara arrived at Apex Enterprises, baby secured in the carrier, mind already running through the day's agenda. Yet beneath her confidence, a quiet tension lingered. She had navigated office politics well so far, but whispers of envy and resentment were beginning to ripple through the ranks, subtle yet persistent. As she settled at her desk, Jonathan appeared, looking uneasy. "Clara, I just wanted to warn you. Some of the senior managers aren't exactly thrilled with your rise. They're talking, quietly, but I think it's more than just casual chatter." Clara nodded thoughtfully. "I expected resistance. The more visible you become, the more scrutiny comes your way. We'll handle it strategically, not emotionally." Her first meeting was with a high-profile client, one known for being demanding and critical. Clara navigated the discussion with precision, balancing technical knowledge with empathy, anticipating concerns before they were voiced. She noticed subtle admiration in the client's tone, a rare acknowledgement of her competence. But back at the office, the subtle storm was brewing. One senior executive, Mr. Hayworth, known for his influence and charm, approached her with a forced smile. "Clara, impressive work on the client call, but have you considered that some decisions might be better handled by more experienced managers?" His tone was polite, but the undercurrent of challenge was unmistakable. Clara maintained her composure, rocking the baby gently as she responded. "Thank you, Mr. Hayworth. I value experience, absolutely, but I also believe in incorporating new perspectives, balancing expertise with fresh insights. It's how we create solutions that are both innovative and effective." His eyes flickered with surprise. No one had ever responded to his subtle digs so calmly, so intelligently. He nodded curtly and walked away, leaving Clara with a quiet sense of victory. Meanwhile, Michael observed the scene from his office window, noting every interaction. The way Clara handled pressure, criticism, and envy with grace and authority captivated him. He realized her influence wasn't just professional, it was deeply human, subtle yet undeniable. Later, Clara found herself in the cafeteria, balancing a quick lunch while the baby played safely nearby. A colleague approached hesitantly, whispering about Hayworth's comments. Clara listened calmly, offering reassurance and perspective. She realized that leadership wasn't just about winning battles. It was about guiding others through uncertainty, inspiring confidence, and modeling resilience. By mid-afternoon, the tension escalated. A miscommunication regarding a client report threatened to derail a project. Clara quickly assessed the situation, gathering the relevant teams, clarifying details, and proposing solutions. Her calm decisiveness turned potential chaos into organized action. Colleagues who had doubted her began to look at her with newfound respect, and a hint of awe. Michael, unable to resist, entered the open workspace quietly. "Clara," he said, voice low but warm, "the way you handle pressure, people, and unexpected challenges, it's remarkable. You're teaching everyone here something valuable, not just through your work but through your presence." Clara looked up, her eyes meeting his. A subtle spark passed between them, an unspoken understanding. "Thank you, sir. I just try to remember that every challenge is an opportunity to grow, not just for me, but for everyone involved." As the day drew to a close, the office emptied slowly. Clara gathered her things, baby now asleep in the carrier, and walked toward the elevator. Outside, city lights shimmered against the wet streets, mirroring the resilience and strength she carried within her. Michael lingered by the office window once more, watching her leave. He thought about the quiet power she wielded, the way she influenced, inspired, and commanded respect without force or aggression. For the first time, he wondered what it would be like if the boundaries between them, professional, emotional, and personal, were to blur. The day had been challenging, yes, but it had also revealed something undeniable. Clara Whitman wasn't just a rising star in the corporate world. She was a force of nature, quietly reshaping the culture around her, and Michael was powerless to ignore it. The next morning, Clara arrived at Apex Enterprises, her baby snug in the carrier, but something in her chest felt heavier than usual. The past week had been a whirlwind. Success, recognition, subtle office envy. But today she felt the weight of expectations pressing down more heavily. Deadlines loomed, critical projects needed oversight, and the whispers of resentment among senior staff had grown more pointed. Her first meeting was with a critical client whose patience was thin. Clara had prepared meticulously, but she couldn't ignore the soft ache of exhaustion in her shoulders. The baby cooed softly, nuzzling against her chest, and she allowed herself a brief smile. This tiny presence reminded her why she persevered, why she had chosen courage over retreat. As she navigated the client call, Michael quietly observed from his office. He noticed her determination, her grace under pressure, and the subtle human moments that made her different from anyone else he had ever encountered. He admired the way she balanced professionalism with warmth, intellect with empathy. Later, back in her office, Clara received a call from her sister. Her voice trembled slightly as she explained a childcare emergency at home. Clara's heart sank. She had managed so far, but the reality of being a working mother in a high-stakes environment hit her with sudden clarity. She felt the tension in her mind. Ambition versus responsibility, duty versus love. Michael, noticing her concern from his office, walked over quietly. "Is everything okay?" he asked softly. There was no formal tone, no corporate distance, just genuine concern. Clara hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "It's manageable, just a personal issue. I'll figure it out." He studied her carefully, sensing the silent struggle she carried. "Clara, you don't always have to manage everything alone," he said. "If there's a way I can help professionally or personally, don't hesitate to ask." Her eyes met his, and for a brief moment the professional barrier blurred. She felt a warmth she hadn't anticipated, a sense of trust, safety, and understanding in a world that often felt cold and transactional. The afternoon brought another challenge, a sudden change in a high-profile project's parameters. Most employees would have panicked, but Clara immediately gathered her team, recalibrated strategies, and delegated tasks with precision. She moved through the office like a calm storm, her presence grounding everyone around her. Michael watched from the sidelines, feeling a pull he couldn't quite define. He had always prided himself on control, detachment, and calculation, but Clara's influence was different. She wasn't demanding, she wasn't seeking power, yet everyone, including him, followed her lead willingly. By the evening, the baby had fallen asleep in her office chair, and Clara finally allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. The weight of responsibilities, the scrutiny, and the constant juggling had left her drained, but also resolute. She knew she had the courage to face what came next. Michael approached once again, this time closing the door gently behind him. "Clara," he began, his voice low and steady, "I need you to know I see more than your work. I see the courage it takes to do what you do every single day, and I respect it deeply." Clara felt a warmth rise in her chest, a mixture of pride, vulnerability, and an unfamiliar flutter of emotion. "Thank you, sir," she whispered, rocking her baby gently. "I just try to do my best. That's all anyone can do, really." For the first time, Michael allowed himself a moment of personal honesty. "Clara, there's something about you that changes the way I see this company, this office, and even myself. You remind me that there's more to success than numbers and profits. There's courage, humanity, and strength." Clara's breath caught slightly, a connection sparking in the quiet of the office that neither words nor policies could define. For a fleeting moment, it was no longer about deadlines, projects, or hierarchy. It was about understanding, respect, and the subtle power of a human presence that could change everything around it. As she packed her things and prepared to leave, the city lights shimmered against the glass walls. Outside, rain began to fall softly, mirroring the quiet cleansing of tension, fear, and doubt. Clara stepped into the elevator, baby in arms, aware that her journey had crossed a new threshold, the intersection of professional triumph and personal vulnerability, with Michael now silently walking beside her, in spirit if not in step. The morning air was crisp and sharp, carrying the distant hum of the city below. Clara arrived at Apex Enterprises, baby secured in the carrier, her mind a whirl of deadlines, client expectations, and the invisible pressure of eyes that watched her every move. Yet beneath her calm exterior, a storm of emotion swirled, professional ambition and personal vulnerability colliding in ways she hadn't anticipated. Her first task was reviewing an urgent proposal that required approval from multiple departments. As she worked, a message from her sister popped up on her phone, a childcare complication at home that threatened to pull her away at a critical moment. Clara's chest tightened. She had managed to balance work and motherhood so far, but the fragility of this balance was becoming painfully clear. She sighed, gently rocking the baby who stirred slightly. Every instinct screamed to prioritize family, yet ambition, responsibility, and the stakes of her recent successes demanded presence. The weight of choice pressed on her like never before. Michael entered her office quietly, sensing the tension. "Clara, I noticed you seemed distracted. Is everything all right?" His tone carried neither formality nor judgment, only concern. Clara hesitated. For a brief moment, she considered shielding him from her personal turmoil. Yet the trust she had started to feel toward him, the rare understanding that transcended hierarchy, compelled honesty. "It's just a family issue," she admitted softly. "I need to figure out a way to manage both without letting either side falter." Michael's gaze softened. "You're remarkable, Clara, but even remarkable people need support. You don't have to carry everything alone." Her heart thudded as their eyes met, a connection neither of them could name, yet both felt intensely. The line between professional respect and personal concern blurred, and for the first time, Clara allowed herself a glimpse of vulnerability in front of the CEO she had always regarded with cautious distance. The day's challenges didn't wait. A sudden crisis arose in a key project. Miscommunication between departments threatened to derail a high-value client pitch. Clara sprang into action, delegating, mediating, and problem-solving with precision. Her colleagues followed her lead instinctively, admiration etched in every gesture and glance. Even those previously skeptical could not deny the force of her presence. Michael observed quietly, impressed not only by her competence but by the quiet humanity she infused into every interaction. He felt a pull toward her, an intangible connection that went beyond business, strategy, and professionalism. He realized that Clara wasn't just changing the company culture, she was challenging the walls he had built around himself. By evening, the office had emptied. Clara cradled the now sleeping baby, reviewing the day's accomplishments and plotting tomorrow's strategy. She was exhausted yet invigorated, aware that each challenge she overcame was shaping her into a leader not just defined by skill, but by heart. Michael approached her office door once more, hesitating slightly before knocking. "Clara," he said, voice low and earnest, "I've seen how you navigate pressure, how you manage both responsibility and care, and I want you to know that it doesn't go unnoticed. Your courage, your presence, it's extraordinary." Clara looked up, the soft office light casting a warm glow across her features. She felt a mixture of pride, gratitude, and something deeper, a quiet flutter of awareness that the professional walls she had maintained were now porous, challenged by the subtle but undeniable attention from Michael. "Thank you," she whispered, rocking the baby gently. "I just try to do my best every day." Michael paused, studying her, sensing the delicate tension between duty and desire, strength and vulnerability. "You inspire people without even trying," he said softly, "including me." For a fleeting moment, silence filled the room, heavy with unspoken emotion and mutual understanding. Outside, the city lights shimmered against the windows, reflecting the delicate intersection of professional triumph, personal struggle, and a connection neither fully understood, yet both felt deeply. As Clara packed her laptop and prepared to leave, she knew that the choices ahead would test her courage in ways she hadn't yet imagined. Balancing ambition and family, duty and desire, was a path fraught with challenges, but for the first time, she felt a thrilling sense of possibility. Michael lingered behind his office door, watching her leave, captivated by her strength, resilience, and quiet magnetism. The boundaries between admiration and something far more personal were shifting, and he realized that Clara's journey, and perhaps his own, was entering a new, unpredictable chapter. The evening city skyline stretched endlessly outside the floor-to-ceiling windows of Apex Enterprises, lights flickering like distant stars. Clara sat at her desk, baby asleep in the carrier beside her, laptop open but untouched. Her mind replayed the events of the day: client calls, strategic victories, subtle office tension, and the quiet, magnetic presence of Michael Carrington that seemed to linger in every corner of the room. A sudden ping on her phone reminded her of an urgent message, a family emergency that required her attention. Her chest tightened. She had spent so much energy proving herself professionally that now life demanded her in ways that could not be postponed. The choice was cruelly clear: personal duty versus professional momentum. Before she could decide, the office door opened quietly. Michael stood there, silhouetted against the fading light, expression unreadable but eyes intensely focused on her. "Clara," he said softly, "I know the weight you're carrying and I want you to know something." She looked up, uncertainty and vulnerability mingling in her gaze. "You're not alone in this," he continued. "Not in the office, and not anywhere else you allow me to be. You have strength most people only dream of, but even the strongest need someone to lean on sometimes." Her heart skipped a beat. The professional boundaries she had maintained for months trembled under the warmth of his words. Clara felt a rush of emotions: gratitude, admiration, and something she couldn't quite name, but which pulled at her very core. "I thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "It's hard sometimes, but I have to keep moving forward for my baby, for myself." Michael stepped closer, careful not to intrude, yet closing the invisible distance between them. "I don't doubt that for a second, and I admire you for it, but you don't have to carry it alone. Not anymore." For a long, suspended moment, they simply looked at each other, an unspoken understanding, a silent acknowledgement of connection and respect, desire and admiration. The room seemed to hold its breath, the city lights casting a halo around them both. The baby stirred, reminding Clara of her dual responsibilities. She smiled softly, a mixture of exhaustion and hope, and adjusted the carrier. "Tomorrow is another challenge," she said quietly. Michael nodded, his gaze lingering on her with something deeper than professional admiration. "And whatever comes, I'll be watching. Not just as CEO, not just as a colleague, but as someone who believes in you." Clara's chest tightened. There was no declaration, no bold confession, just a quiet promise, a moment of connection that was powerful in its subtlety. She realized that her journey wasn't just about navigating corporate life. It was about forging bonds that mattered, shaping her world with courage and heart, and allowing herself to be seen. As she packed her things and headed toward the elevator, the camera of her mind lingered on Michael, still standing by his office door, watching silently, a faint smile playing at the edges of his lips. The future was uncertain, full of choices and challenges, but one truth had begun to crystallize. Some connections are unavoidable, undeniable, and transformative. The morning sunlight streamed through the windows of Apex Enterprises, painting the office in warm golden hues. Clara adjusted her baby in the carrier, taking a deep breath. Today felt lighter, less the weight of proving herself, more the promise of what she had built. Respect, influence, and a quiet sense of accomplishment. The office, once tense and whispering, now hummed with a subtle admiration toward her. Colleagues greeted her genuinely, offered assistance, and even Mr. Hayworth, the senior executive who had subtly challenged her, nodded with respect as she passed. Clara realized that true leadership wasn't about dominance. It was about presence, courage, and integrity. She had broken the invisible ceilings, not just for herself, but for anyone who felt overlooked or underestimated. Michael appeared at her doorway, a rare, unguarded smile on his face. "Morning, Clara," he said softly, his eyes reflecting genuine warmth. "Good morning, sir," Clara replied, rocking her baby gently. He stepped inside, leaning casually against the doorframe. "I wanted to say, I've seen you grow through challenges, handle crises, and inspire people, not just through authority but through who you are. You've changed the office and me more than I expected." Clara's heart fluttered, but she smiled with calm confidence. "Thank you. I've learned that courage isn't about being fearless. It's about moving forward even when you are." Michael nodded, eyes locking with hers, something unspoken flowing between them. "And you won't have to do it alone, ever again. Not in this office, not anywhere you allow me to be." The words hung in the air, tender yet profound. Clara felt a warmth, a sense of connection and trust that transcended hierarchy, ambition, and even the uncertainty of life as a working mother. She realized that success was no longer only about projects or recognition. It was about bonds, courage, and allowing herself to be fully seen. As she gathered her things, ready to leave, she glanced back. Michael lingered, watching, not as a boss, not as a stranger, but as someone quietly devoted to understanding her, respecting her strength, and walking beside her in ways words couldn't fully express. Outside, the city pulsed with life. The challenges ahead were real, but Clara felt ready. She had faced doubts, skepticism, envy, and exhaustion, and had emerged stronger, wiser, and unapologetically herself. She stepped into the elevator, baby in arms, and for the first time, the future felt like a space of endless possibilities rather than limitations. And somewhere behind her, Michael's gaze lingered, a quiet promise that the paths they were walking, both professional and personal, had begun to converge. The story of courage, connection, and quiet power had reached its turning point, but the journey and the possibilities were just beginning. Sparkles, the end sparkles. Lightbulb loved Clara and Michael's journey. Hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more emotional, binge-worthy stories of courage, ambition, and unspoken connections. Don't miss what's coming next.